Satnam. Welcome back to the Aquarian Shift. My name is Jason Diltz, also known as Tag Kaldeep. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how the opening weeks of the Trump administration perfectly illustrate the changing of the ages and this transition from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. And I'm going to answer the question, is Donald Trump, in fact, the water bearer of the Age of Aquarius? Stay tuned, find out what I have to say about it. Now, before I say anything, I want to make one thing very clear. This is not a pro-Trump video. This is not an anti-Trump video. This is my best attempt at being neutral about the man and the political machinations that surround our current president, Donald Trump. And this is my best attempt to look at from a neutral mind, which is the mind that the yogis want to have most activated, all that is going on, and putting that into a larger cosmological context. Now, why am I talking about Donald Trump? Well, I'm talking about Donald Trump because he is currently our president. And whenever we have a president in the United States, or whenever any country has an elected leader, or any sort of leader, that leader is an avatar of the collective. And whoever that person is, whoever he or she is as an individual, what matters more is what they represent, and what matters less is who they actually are as a person. And right now, I think it's pretty clear that Donald Trump represents pretty sudden change, pretty dramatic change, and a complete dissolution and dismantling of many of the guardrails, many of the institutions, and many of the ways we are used to existing as a society and as a democracy. So Donald Trump is an avatar. That's where I want to root this conversation. You may hate him, you may vilify him, you may lionize him, you may idealize him, you may think he's the greatest president, you may think he is the worst president. That does not matter. And that doesn't matter for the purposes of what I'm going to talk about in terms of how he relates and what he is doing relates to the Age of Aquarius. What matters is that at any point, when we're confronted with any situation, we're able to look at it objectively and put it into the larger cosmological context of what's going on. So this is my attempt to do that. I think everybody is aware that Donald Trump is a disruptor. Disruption is an essential part of the transition from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. The Age of Aquarius is an age where the planet of Uranus, which I'm wearing the glyph of Uranus right now, specifically for this video, it's ruled by that planet. It's ruled by Uranian energy. And Uranian energy is energy that brings very sudden, very dramatic changes. It's wake up, shake up energy. And from the day he descended the escalator in 2015, announced that he was running for president, he has consistently disrupted, and he has consistently brought change and consistently dismantled long-held assumptions and long-held ideas, and that is very Uranian energy. Now, an essential part of shifting from the Age of Pisces to the Age of Aquarius is the dismantling of institutions. The Age of Pisces, which came about around 2,000 years ago, brought with it the establishment of institutions, government institutions, religious institutions, educational institutions, scientific institutions. All of this knowledge, all of this bureaucracy allowed us to attain a certain level of development, and it served us for a certain point in our collective evolution. But here we are 2,000 years later, and it's no longer serving us. And we can all look back over the history of just the last couple of decades, and we can see different ways that different institutions have failed us. There's all sorts of scandals that have gone on with many different denominations and many different faiths that surround the way that the institution that housed religion failed the people that it was serving. We had the scandal several years back with the college admissions, where these educational institutions were admitting people that weren't qualified simply because they came from privileged backgrounds. It now means a lot less to have a college degree than it did 20 years ago because the institution is weakened. And then, of course, there's our government, which really hasn't been doing the greatest job of serving people. And that, as an institution, is being weakened. So in comes the second term of Donald Trump. And with that second term, the Age of Aquarius, the consciousness of what it means to be in the Age of Aquarius, is starting to set in. And a big part of the Aquarian consciousness is not only the disruption and the dismantling of institutions that were a relic from the Piscean age that we are now exiting, but it's the building up of the idea of self-sovereignty and the idea that leadership and authority is self-emanating, and that you're not going to look to the outside to find the answers. You're going to find all of that inside. Now, Donald Trump is not talking about any of that, but what he's doing is setting the stage for us to collectively have to reconcile that truth. And I'm going to break it down, kind of what that looks like and what I've observed that looking like. So again, the Age of Aquarius, it's all about decentralization, it's all about innovation, and it's about the collapse of hierarchical control. It's about the shift from external authority, that's governments, that's religious institutions, that's media monopolies, to inner authority, personal sovereignty, and collective intelligence. So for the past 2,000 years, we have been in the Age of Pisces. Pisces rules belief, it rules illusion, it rules the power of centralized institutions. Those institutions are now crumbling. Something new is going to be born from the rubble. Trump's return to office is not the cause of the shift, and I think that's important to understand. Rather, it's a manifestation of it. Remember, I've said it here before, evolution is time-coded. So Trump coming in isn't coming in as some, cosmically anointed messiah. He's a symptom of the times. And he, as our current leader, is the avatar that is going to entice us to move through the times. Whether you agree with his actions or not, they serve as markers for something much deeper and a huge cosmic realignment. And I'm going to talk about 6 things that I've seen in the opening weeks that I think really underscore this. The first is, of course, the dismantling of institutions. So, right away, he withdrew us from the World Health Organization and from the Paris Climate Accord. Those were, governments coming together, institutions coming together, people making those agreements. That signifies a break from the traditional global structures and the emergence of new alliances where you're going to see decentralized or nationalist themes start to emerge. In the Age of Aquarius, globalism as we have known it is going to shift. People are already starting to take more interest and more control over their own governments rather than relying on these monolithic institutions and all of these global international alliances. And again, you may think this is bad, you may think this is good. The purpose of this video is not to try to get you to think one thing or another, it's to try to get you to understand that the reason things like these alliances and these global organizations that we're part of are starting to break down that's the decentralization. That's the return of the sovereign. That's the inner authority that's having to come through, and it first has to be torn down before something new can emerge from it. Second thing I'm seeing is really redefining social policies. In redefining them in ways that have caused a lot of unease and a lot of fear, but the redefinition is what I think we need to really focus on. So there have been changes around gender and identity, not just political decisions. They're forcing society to really re-examine the collective understanding of the self. And in the Age of Aquarius, identity is going to be in flux. Old definitions aren't going to hold. everything is going to be up for redefinition. I find it very interesting that the transgender conversation asserted itself at the beginning of the term, and one of the first things he did was establish, okay, 2 genders, no more pronouns in your government emails, no more, transgender people on sports teams and so on. I have a feeling that what that is going to do is really make people think about what all these identities mean and what it means to be an individual, what it means to hold a masculine energy, what it means to hold feminine energy, and how we want to express that out. And whatever the government actions are, whatever is real and whatever is authentic is going to find a way to assert itself. So I think that's where people who I am friends with and who are very afraid of the actions that have been taken, and I completely understand those fears, the invitation now is to find your own sovereignty, because you don't need the government to give you permission to be who you are. And I think that was one of the illusions that we fell under when Neptune went into Pisces in 2010. That began a lot of conversations, which I think were needed, around diversity, around inclusion, around having, previously marginalized groups be more at the forefront. All of that is good, but ultimately, we can't rely as a crutch on the government or on businesses or on any institution to validate who we are. That has to be self-emanating. So if you're a transgender person, if you're a non-binary person, if you don't express gender in the male-female paradigm, and you feel that you are being attacked right now, the challenge is to find the authority within, and to not be knocked back on your heels, but to stand up strong, stand up tall, and say, this is who I am, and I don't need any president, I don't need any government to tell me who I am, what I am, who I'm not, what I'm not. I am me. Ultimately, we're all here having temporary experiences. Some of us are having male experiences, some of us are having female experiences, some of us feel that we're having an experience somewhere in a continuum of that. It's important that you know who you are, that you know what you're here to do, and you can't let anybody else take your power and authority away. Third thing that I'm seeing is a restructuring of federal power, and this goes back in part to the institution. So there's been a federal hiring freeze, there's been a reduction of government size with this DOGE effort that Elon Musk is heading up, and all of this is not only challenging but very rapidly dismantling the bureaucracy. Well, that's Aquarian energy. Aquarian energy disrupts top down. It's favoring systems that are more nimble, adaptable, and self-regulating. I was reading a lot of articles today about these buyouts that are being offered right now for federal employees. Basically, you can choose to take a buyout and you don't have to work, and you don't have to work and you get paid until September, and then of course your job is gone. And if you don't, there's threats that you'll be fired. Again, I'm not here to talk about what's good and what's bad. I'm here to talk about what is Aquarian, and that's very Aquarian, the dismantling of the bureaucracy. We're going to get to what comes after everything gets dismantled in a minute. The fourth thing that I'm seeing is the challenges of legal precedent. So one of the first things that Trump did was attempt to end birthright citizenship, and that challenges something that's deeply rooted in almost every mainstream interpretation of the Constitution, that the idea is that if you're born in the U.S. because of the 14th Amendment, you're a U.S. citizen regardless of whether your parents were citizens or not. Well, Trump is challenging that right out the gate. Whether or not it succeeds, the very fact that it's being debated, that signifies a breakdown of something that was an unquestionable legal structure just a few months ago. That's very Aquarian. In the age of Aquarius, everything has to be considered. Nothing is sacred and nothing as it once was. Even something that was once thought to be completely enshrined in the Constitution. Now, you can talk about constitutional guardrails, you can talk about whether this is good, bad. That isn't this discussion. This discussion is about what is Aquarian, and again, the idea of challenging long-held assumptions, That is Aquarian because, again, Uranian energy, it's shaking things up. The fifth thing I'm noticing, the pardoning of controversial figures. The opening salvo of the Trump presidency was the pardoning of January 6th rioters. That revealed a shift in how justice, rebellion, and governance are understood. Aquarius energy doesn't conform to past norms. It seeks to rewrite them. It disrupts them. It evolves them beyond what they've been. What I found interesting about the January 6th pardons was the Aquarius is the sign of the rebel. The archetype of Aquarius is the outlaw. And so one of the first things you see is the pardoning of rebels, the pardoning of outlaws, the pardoning of people who were literally convicted of a crime for storming the Capitol. It's less about what is right and what is wrong, and it's more about what is Aquarian. I'm going to say that over and over again, because the point of this video is not to trigger you. It's to help you understand the time stream that we're living in. And why did Trump pardon the January 6th rioters? Well, of course, he had his own selfish motivations, just like every president has their own selfish motivations for why they pardon someone. But that's very much in the zeitgeist of what it means to be alive in the age of Aquarius. The people who institutions would have reigned in before are now exalted to be rebels and outlaws. And of course, it's up to us as individuals to decide what we think about the rule of law and how we are going to act and comport ourselves in society in accordance to what we know is right and wrong. That's for you to decide. That's for you to figure out. The last thing, the sixth thing that I've noticed is that there is a wrecking ball that has been taken to mainstream media, or what's often called legacy media. I read the website Politico quite a bit just to stay up to date on various political machinations. And one thing I found interesting was this week, I guess one of the Elon Musk's Doge findings was that there were, I believe, $8 million in government subscriptions to what's called Politico Pro, which I don't know what that, I've never used it. Well, I know what it is. It's basically a tool that gives you more information about different things that are going on within the government. But anyways, there was about $8 million being spent. So that's being slashed. Other subscriptions to news outlets by the government, it was announced today, are being cut. A lot of mainstream news organizations like 60 Minutes, one example, George Stephanopoulos with ABC News, they've been sued by Trump. They're settling with Trump. Their viewership, regardless of the legal proceedings, has plummeted. That happened after the election. So these are decentralizing and destabilizing times for legacy media. We've known print media was on its way out for a while. That became a casualty of the digital age. Now I think what we're looking at is the broadcast media and the old school journalists and the respected news anchors who are going to give you the truth and tell it to you like it is. Truth is now subjective. Everybody chooses their own version of what is truth. So we don't have that anymore. And what the legacy of that remains is being dismantled. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years we didn't have a CNN, we didn't have an MSNBC, we didn't have a Fox News. I think where all of this is going, and again, what Trump is doing is just a salvo. We're going to go to a place where we're going to be getting our media from highly individualized sources, from people who resonate with us. And I'm not commenting whether this is good or bad. I'm commenting on what is Aquarius, and that is very Aquarius. Because Aquarius energy is the energy of the individual. It's also the energy of decentralization, and it's the energy of interdependence. So you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be creating their own content, making their own commentary about what's going on, doing their own reporting, in quotations and not in quotations, about things that are happening. And then they're going to have followers, and they're going to have people that resonate with that, and they're going to create their own revenue streams out of that. And that's very Aquarian. So Trump is not the architect of this shift. I want to make that very clear. He's simply a catalyst. He's an avatar for the forces of chaos and the forces of transformation. If it weren't him, it would be somebody else, because these are the times of disruption. These are the times of change. These are the times of revolution, because these are the times of the Age of Aquarius. So is Donald Trump the avatar of the Age of Aquarius? Is he the person who's bearing the jug? Is he the water carrier? Unequivocally, I say no. Donald Trump is not the water bearer, because I know who the water bearer is, and the water bearer is you. You are the avatar of the Age of Aquarius, and that's what makes this age so different from any other age. This is an age of individualism. This is an age of sovereignty. This is an age of decentralization, and you, in your own way, in using your own talents, in using the mission and activating the mission that you came here to live out, you will be the one that carries the water, that cosmic plasma, that divine knowledge, onto the planet. Donald Trump will be president for 4 years, and we'll have a new president, and then we'll have a president after that president, and so on and so forth. The Age of Aquarius will last for 2,000 years. We may not even have presidents anymore by the time the Age of Aquarius is over with. It doesn't matter. What matters is you as a strong individual doing your thing and putting your own special sauce out into the world. And that brings me to what I want to close with, which is, okay, all of this chaos, all of this destruction, all of these things being torn down, and this sort of dizzying news cycle, and we don't know what's going on, and some of us love it and some of us hate it, and oh my God, what does that mean? At the end of the day, everything that we know about the world, about how the world works, is going to be torn down. It'll either be torn down by Trump, or it will be torn down by other people or forces greater than any person. And I tend to think that we're about to experience some pretty radical times where forces, more than anything else, are going to be the things that cause a lot of this change. But what is important to understand is that when something falls, when something is torn down, something new must be created, and something new and better must be constructed in its place and on top of the rubble. And that's what all of you are going to do. Anybody who is watching this, you are a warrior. You are an agent. You indeed are an avatar of the Age of Aquarius. And you, in your own way, will create something new. So, all these people that are getting fired from the government, or all people who've lost their jobs who were working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, I assume those are talented people who have gifts and have a mission and have greater things they can contribute to the collective. And that's the challenge, is that every person, when one opportunity ends and one life and one iteration of life ends, you have to then pivot and create something new and figure out how to use your talents and your capabilities to uplift people around you. And trust that in the uplifting, and when you reach in and you use your talents, trust that you will be upheld and that you will be sustained and that you will find abundance and prosperity from doing whatever it is that you know you're here to do. I think it's really easy to get stuck on all the stuff that's going away and all the things that are changing and all of the stuff we used to like and things we used to enjoy that are no longer here. What's harder, but what is necessary, is to focus on, we don't know the good things that are to come. We have no idea what new awesome experiences, inventions, and ways of being and ways of existing are going to be coming in this new age. But boy, are we about to find out. And the new age is not, many, many years ahead. The new age is right now. And we're literally creating it every single day. And we're creating new ways of being together. And that's what we have to focus on. I practice Kundalini Yoga. I go to several yoga studios in LA, Nine Treasures Yoga, Babaji. I do Rama TV online. those are communities. Those are people who've come together and created something and created a way for people to coexist and grow in ways that are uniquely Aquarian. Through Breath in Wichita, Kansas, Tyler Duncan is one of the people involved with that. They're a yoga collective that's doing something very similar. They're uniting people in Wichita, Kansas around the idea of meditating and breath work and sound healing, and that is very Aquarian. I do some work with a group called Midtopia in Wichita. They're putting on the Somewhere Music Festival. They have the Somewhere Works Music School. That's very Aquarian. They're empowering musicians and giving tools to artists to help them self-actualize their own creativity. That's something new. That's something that did not exist in the years before. So those are just some examples of what just people that I know and things I'm involved in are manifesting in an Aquarian way. Things that have nothing to do with Donald Trump, because even though I used him and I used what's been going on a collective level over these last 2 weeks or so as a lead-in, this is much bigger than any one person. And we have to understand that as this one person is dominating the public conversation right now, the only one person that actually matters is us, each of us as an individual, and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. Let's not get caught up in the ego machinations of others. Let's find the sovereignty, let's find the authority within, because that's really what the Age of Aquarius is. And let's also remember, as difficult as many of these transitions are, the Age of Aquarius is ultimately going to be the age of the heart. It's ultimately going to be an age where we start to understand and relate to higher love, and where we have communities that are based not on codependence, but on interdependence. And that's what I want to leave you with, is just a message of hope, because no matter what you think about the times, what you think about the leaders in the times, the ultimate leader is you, the ultimate authority is you. And at no other time other than this time, the Age of Aquarius, the shift into the Age of Aquarius, has that been possible. So let's get excited about being alive at the turning of the ages. Let's trance ourselves into the idea that this is the best time to be alive, because we actually have more freedom available to us now than we ever have at any point. And there's no president, there's no leader, and there's nothing that can get in the way of that. So with that, may the longtime sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Until next time, Sat Nam.